Little makeshift bushes there. Alright, this is a crazy video. Something you probably didn't expect, but I'm very excited to show you because it's a world exclusive of this. Whoa. Okay, this is the first fully electric Ferrari, the Ferrari Luce. I'm here with the keys. I'm here with all the info. I've driven the car. I have so many thoughts, but this is a first walk around and look at what is being revealed when I upload this today, which is the final design in this near final working prototype of the car. And they have done a lot with the Ferrari Luce. Now I'm shooting this in Italy with DJ Osmo. That's not mine. So, sorry if the footage is a little bit weird, but hopefully it looks pretty good. Yeah, there it is behind me. Just a little bit of background. This is a Ferrari. This fully electric. The challenges that come from building a fully electric car, I feel like are on one side of the slider, and the challenges that come from building a Ferrari are like on the other end. Like a Ferrari you think of as a two-door sports car, downforce arrow monster, and obviously a crazy engine and super lightweight, but then an electric car on the other end of the spectrum, you think of that as being as smooth as possible. A lot of them are like featureless blobs that have to flow through the air as seamlessly as possible with the lowest drag coefficient. But a lot of them are also pretty heavy and have a lot of storage space. And so finding a way to combine those things and put them somewhere in the middle in a way that can be somewhat both, well, that's a crazy challenge. And that's why they brought in Love from, you might remember Johnny Ive's company, for the design. So there is a big collab here between Ferrari and Love from. And that's why this looks nothing like any previous Ferraris. And we got to walk through this whole thing. So let's just get started. So first of all, the basics, which I will try to put as many of them on the screen as I can here, which include the fact that this is a quad motor, fully electric car, 120 plus kilowatt battery, and 300 plus miles of range. Also, obviously going to be very expensive, because it's a Ferrari, but also I have driven this car. I'm not allowed to show you that yet though, so that's going to be a separate video coming later. Make sure you get subscribed to see that when it does come out. What I'll tell you now is it is very capable, surprisingly capable. Tons going on with active suspension and torque vectoring and making this family size looking 5-seater trackable. But we'll get to that in that separate video. For now though, let's just walk over what's going on with all of these aesthetics because there is so much from front to back. A lot of quirks and features, as Doug DeMiro would say. So, let's start at the very front. What you're looking at is the face of the Luce. You've got these DRLs up at the front here. The actual headlights are underneath, and then even lower under that is active arrow. So those gills, just like the 992.22 generation of 911s, does open and close, depending on if you need more cooling or less drag. And you can see even the headlights down here are just like this smooth glass on this whole black front here. You can also down here get a better look at this gap which goes up underneath this massive front splitter. So this is all an air gap here. And I can fit my whole arm underneath here because this goes up to this continuous windshield and this seamless canopy that goes over the top of the Luce. You can see into the cabin here, so it's kind of hard to point this Osmo down, but the air just goes right in the front here and up over the canopy to give you a little bit of downforce at higher speeds for more stability. And that super smooth canopy also means there is no place to hide the windshield wipers because typically the cowl, the little depression right here, is where you hide them. And without that little cowl, they would just be a massive drag problem. So instead, the windshield wipers are on the outside edge of the windshield. So on the left and on the right are these really tall windshield wipers that rest on the outer edges. That's definitely not something that I've seen before. Now, let's make our way further down. Okay, it's got this enormous front wheel. This is a fully covered turbine-style wheel cover. And there will also be a more open, like sort of 5-spoke wheel design. But that's a 265/35 23-inch wheel at the front and a 24 at the back. What is it? A 3-153/04. So it's got these huge wheels, which really loans it to that futuristic type of proportions, where the wheels are a huge portion of the height of the car. So then I'm going to get in close here. You can see this badge, which is not painted on. That's a real metal badge, and then a little bit of arrow. So this is ventilation for that front wheel. And you also have a little bit more ventilation down here for the front wheel arch. The air will pass down here. Then you come to the back, and there's again some ventilation for that rear wheel arch back here where you see the rear of the Luce for the first time. And oh, okay, just a little bit of Ferrari DNA going on back here. You've probably seen lights that look like that before, but look at this big ventilation that sort of electrifies and smooths out this design. This is so different from what a lot of people were probably expecting when they heard that there's going to be a new Ferrari, especially one that's electric. But again, all of this smooth air flowing down the side, This is the shape that you always see on these electric cars because they have to be like that to get the most range. And so, yes, 300 plus miles of range. It's not a ton, but it is winning some of those efficiency gains, and these are actually the door handles right here. I am a little bit worried about maybe some snow and ice getting in here in some colder climates, but those front doors open just like that. And the back doors, you might be now suspecting if it's like the Paris. And yes, it is, welcome. Doors open backwards to let you in the back seat where there are 3 seats, not 2. Okay, so I hope you've taken a breath already. There's a lot going on that makes this so very different from any other Ferrari and a lot of other EVs. Size-wise, because I haven't actually seen this next to another car yet, but it feels like it's about the same size as a Parangue, for example, which is their SUV or FUV. But proportionally, it's very different because it takes more advantage of the electrical packaging. The driver is more forward since there's no V12 sitting up there pushing you back, and the passengers are further back because you can just do that and you push them into the trunk space a little bit. And so the same wheelbase or a slightly longer wheelbase has way more interior room. So this is more friendly for actual large groups of people. But you know what? It's time to get into the driver's seat because I'm sure you've been wondering what it's like to sit and drive a Luce. And this is that interior that we've seen so much about, seen all those teasers about. I'm going to do my best with the camera work with the DJI Osmo here, but all metal, leather, and glass everywhere, real tactile controls, and just a little bit of that retro future look. And that I really like. So there's a ton of quirks and features and weird touches that I'm going to show you. First things first, this is the key. You've seen the rectangular Ferrari key before. It's got on the back the lock, the unlock, and the business end which opens the trunk. And then this right here is where you put the key. There's actually a little bit of a magnet back there. And so this display, which has a light behind it, will actually go out as you put the key over it. It magnetizes in place, and then you push it in, which then begins an initiating startup sequence on the displays in the car and sort of welcomes you to the Luce. There is no big V12 to turn on and come to life and roar. The only way for you to know that you've started up the Luce, since there is no on-off button, is to push that key into place and watch that animation welcome you to the car. So, first things first. These displays look really good. One of the things I've asked about and thought about on my podcast is how are they going to manage having these real displays, but then also having cutouts and all these different elements that are actually sometimes physical and sometimes not display. It turns out it looks great. I don't think they're OLEDs, but they're really dark blacks, so I can't rule that out. But there are cutouts in the displays where they then punch back to a second display that's slightly deeper in and then a real physical tachometer. So that needle right there is real, and there's an aluminum ring around it, and it's illuminated, and it moves up and down. But then, the display back there for those numbers can actually change. Same with the power levels over here. Same with the G-force meter over here. And these are all customizable displays, but that's a real cutout in the outside display. And then, same over here in this center display. So you've got this center display, which is kind of on a shelf here, which it actually moves around, and it kind of has this 360-degree well, not full, 360, but this real articulation. You can tell it is doing a really good job. Avoiding reflections. See, there's a light above here, but it's doing a fantastic job of minimizing that. So, it's pretty great looking in person. Really contrasty. And then this clock over here, if that focuses, is actually a cutout in the display again. And those numbers are a second display indented in there, so it can change to show different things. If I want it to be a stopwatch, I can do that. If I want it to be a chronometer, if I want it to be something else, I can do all of that in the settings. And then this will actually show a whole bunch more UI. It'll even have Apple CarPlay. Okay, I've seen this show CarPlay down here. There's a whole bunch more going on with this display, but that's the general layout, is the display for the drivers here. The secondary display, which can be for the driver or the passenger, is here. And then it's got these little switches, these metal switches, which are super intuitive. It just moves your fan speed up and down like that, moves your temperature up and down like that, makes it super obvious when it's cooling or heating, when your seat heater is on or seat cooler is on. All of that is with these little nice, satisfying notches. And there's a real physical settings button and way more going on here. This is nice. Really nice UI. I almost never have to use that secondary display though because the steering wheel, which has a couple buttons on it, is also really intuitive. For those of you in Ferrari land, you already know a lot of the recent Ferraris have a ton going on the steering wheel. A lot of buttons like capacitive buttons, the blinkers, a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't love it. I suspect a lot of you don't either, but this new wheel has a whole bunch going on, but it's actually way more intuitive, and they've moved a lot of stuff off of the wheel. So, it's a really simple 3-spoke design. You can see the thin aluminum rails here. On the left is your power manettino, so you can go from range mode to tour mode to performance mode. And on the right, you have your different traction modes. So ice, wet, dry, sport, and ESC off. And when you do these things, you actually get this nice physical click. It's really nice. And you can also see the display back here changes based on what you're in. So the color is green for dry, orange for sport, blue for wet, ice blue for ice. Like, this is really well thought out. And then that little bit of UI you probably remember from the video. It's so good. See how much power you have over here? You have 100% power. When I switch to tour mode, you have 70% power. When I switch to range mode, you have 50% power. Tour mode, performance mode. That is so nice. It's one of those little things where, this doesn't make a huge difference to most people in most cars. But that extra little bit of consideration for UI. Quirk/feature. I have a lot more to say about these paddles in the driving video. But to keep it simple for this one, you have a left paddle that can increase your regen and a right paddle that can decrease your regen, but also increase your power/torque. You can kind of play with them to drive the car, and it has this whole fantastic personality and a little bit of noise to go with it in performance mode. But again, that's really oversimplifying it. There's a lot more to talk about in the driving video, so stay tuned for that. And then there's this whole center section. There's so much more to talk about with this car, with these seats and everything. Okay, center section first. So the theme continues in the center console that everything you touch in this car is either metal, aluminum, glass, or leather. There's wireless chargers for your phone up front. There's a left and a right here. So, 2 wireless chargers. Then there's 2 cup holders down here, which are both metal, incredibly. Then you have the gear selector. So once you pop that key into place, you can move this glass switch over and down to go into drive. Super satisfying. Neutral, reverse, park. You also have the button to open the trunk, lock the doors, and those are all of your window switches in the middle here and your hazards. And then these 2 small little
cubbies in the center. So, not a ton of space, but one on each side where you can put your phone in here and charge it because there's a USB Type-C port if you want to wire it in. But there's one on each side, so it's not a huge amount of interior space there. But there is also a glove box over here with a real button to open and close it. And then these vents. Okay, these vents are crazy. They rotate open and closed based on you rotating this bezel, and they can point in any direction you want. So you very visibly can clearly tell when a vent is open or when it's closed, and you can rotate it to open it, half open it, 3/4 open it, whatever. That is so nice. There are touches like this all over this car, from the physical buttons to the way it's organized. The canopy above my head is electrochromic roof, so it can tint or it can be clear. There's speakers everywhere that are almost entirely circular or pill-shaped, but they're all over the cabin, and they all have this unified look to them. The seats, there's a couple of different material finishes you can use as well. This is the brown leather interior, and these seats are quite comfortable. Speaking as someone who is taking them around a track, they're also pretty supportive. And there's also ambient lighting everywhere that you can change the brightness of, and just generally a really nice material feel. And even these doors, you can see down here there's the little cubby for your water bottle, and there's ambient lighting. But if you grab this door handle, that's solid metal, a cold piece of metal, and this circular button to open the door, which is really satisfying. Okay, back seat. This is the first time I've been able to say this about a Ferrari. 3 seats in the back. Okay, the second seat in the middle is flat here, but I'm going to pop myself in and I'll try to get some good angles of it so you don't have to take my word for it, but a really good amount of legroom. They've clearly pushed the rear seat back and the front seats forward to give the second row passengers really usable space. Just totally not what you'd expect from a Ferrari. But if you want to open and close the doors, they are automatically opening and closing with this little button right here, which is awesome. In fact, let's close the door and just see how well that works in this model. Perfect. You also have a second display down here. So again, these really sweet opening and closing vents. Looks like this one's not functional yet, but then the display just to show you how fast you're going, what kind of power you're using, and even more of those super intuitive controls. I love these controls. I hope more people copy it. There's only a couple cars that do it this well, and this is one of them. So shout out to the design of the Luce team. Headroom is pretty good. I'm 6'3" and I'm behind the 63 driving position, and I have a ton of room. The roof doesn't cut down too far with this glass roof. You also have an armrest down here, which has a pair of metal cup holders in the center. I mean, it's very clear, very easy for me to say that this is the best backseat experience of any Ferrari ever. And I'm tempted to say it's the best backseat experience of any 5-seater EV ever. But I might hold that. But it might be. What do you guys think of this design? I think it'll be polarizing. I'm curious to see it with those 5-spoke wheels on it. I think that'll be much more sporty looking. But it does clearly try to adopt the character of a Ferrari. You see it from behind pretty instantly, you know it's a Ferrari. It's got the laser-etched badge. It's got those circular taillights. It says Ferrari in the badge spot that it usually does. This is also, again, if you can see my hand going in there, a little bit of a wing. So it's an aero feature. So it's doing the Ferrari stuff, but it's obviously in this very, very different packaging of being a very sporty electric 5-seater, almost a crossover, dare I say. Here, let's go back into the driver's seat. I got some more numbers to share with you, but let me just close this back seat of the model real quick. Again, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but soft closed doors. Really good touch. But driver's seat. Okay, I got some more numbers for you here that will be available, I'm sure, on Ferrari's website. But just to put it into context, what sort of power you're working with. Range mode in this car will be the most tailored for the best efficiency, of course. That will be roughly 530 kilometers of max range on a full charge and 320 kilowatts of power. Then Tour mode, when I flip it to 70% power, is 460 kilowatts. It's all-wheel drive. It's a good hybrid of performance and regular chill driving. And then Performance mode, that is your full 140 horsepower, 725 kilowatts, and that'll do a launch from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. Speaking of launch, I'll try to get the Osmo to point up. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. This is just a couple extra controls for things like your lights and your fog lights. But most importantly, this is your launch control pull, which is, again, maybe the most satisfying piece of hardware. Everything you touch is still metal. You pull that down, you get some fun UI in the center screen, and you do your 2.5 second 060 launch. I don't know if it'll do a sub 9 quarter. Probably not. Maybe sub 10. But at this point, I'm marveling of the interior quality in this car. Speakers, I want to hear how they sound. I suspect they'll sound pretty good, but I mostly only just know speaker position. Driving-wise, it can be pretty quiet and chill in its most chill driving setting with the windows up because there isn't any extra fun noise. The extra fun noise is just in performance mode. Stay tuned for the driving video. So overall, okay, there is clearly a lot going on here that is brand new, unique to this Ferrari, and never before seen. And to that end, it doesn't really have a comp. I was thinking about other cars I could possibly compare this to. And in the performance department, it might be close to something like a Lucid Air. But in the size department, it's much closer to that Perenge/Urus SL midsize crossover type thing. But it doesn't drive anything like any of those things. So it's really hard to come up with a comp for this, which is where you get to the price being extremely high. It's a Ferrari. That was never going to be a question, but I'm very curious what you guys think of this new Ferrari design and look. I love the interior. I think they've done a great job. I hope that some of the stuff from this interior trickles down to other cars on the road. And then, yeah, it's just got this crazy, look at this gaping, huge gaping wing at the front, like a whale shark. So many questions, so many answers. Let me know in the comments section below what you think, and get subscribed to see the driving video coming hopefully very soon. Thanks for watching.